Hello, everyone. I'm Steven from Tostemac, and welcome to another Tostemac podcast. On these podcasts, we talk about all kinds of things like maybe past events, precious memories, current events, or something that's trending, basically anything, really. But today, I have a special guest that promotes autism and special needs through the power of radio. So, everyone, welcome Miss Sue Shilling.
Well, thank you for having me, Steve. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. So you run a radio show, so I imagine many people know about you. But for those who don't, can you tell a little bit about yourself?
Sure thing. It's called Everything Special Needs, and we try to really cover everything dealing with special needs, and we try to cover all age groups from the very young to the adults with special needs, and try to find resources that can help them. We also share a lot of stories that might give some people some insight, and just allowing people to have that opportunity to share their stories. You know, time and time again, I get messages from individuals who have special needs that want an opportunity to have a platform to share their story, and they're able to do so. And also the parents, you know, sometimes the child might not be in a position to share their story verbally on the radio, so their parent does that on behalf. And we actually last year made history on the show. We had our first nonverbal guest. The lady, yes, she used her augmentative communication, her iPad, and she used and answered the questions through that. So that was a really cool thing as well. So we try to cover it all, and we have everything from that to even doctors that talk about different needs, and financial planners, lawyers. We try to cover all the various resources that can help people out.
Awesome. Yeah, that's actually really great, because I remember like a few years back, or actually, no, many years back, whereas like for many autistic people, one of the biggest obstacles is finding a platform to share their stories and speak their minds. In fact, I think that was one of the reasons why Ari Neiman had created the Autism Self-Advocacy Network in order to create that platform for the autistic community. So the fact that you're doing these radio shows and providing people that platform, it really helps out. So how did you get started on this?
Well, I've been in radio for quite some time. I've worked various formats. Most of my career has been in sports broadcasting in Philadelphia. Now I'm on the all news station. But basically how it started was I have a special needs daughter of my own. Seeing the resources and hearing parents and wanting a platform to be able for people to be able to share their stories, I kind of took the two ideas, having a child with various special needs and having my background in radio. I married those two things together and was able to come up with the concept to start this show. And we started it in May of 2014. And now here we are in almost April of 2022. So we've
so about 8 years.
Yes, and we've had the opportunity to meet so many people and learn. I mean, people could learn from the show and learn from the guests, but just to kind of turn that around, I've learned so much from the people that have shared their stories. That's really what's been the most rewarding for me.
Nice. Yeah, it's always great to talk to all kinds of people, hear their stories, where they come from, and I imagine you hear a lot. Is there any particular story that stands out to you from others, or?
There's a few things that I've learned. One thing, and I've had a woman on who, she's an actress, and she has a disability. I don't remember the exact disability was, but it was a pretty pronounced disability, and she's an actress. And she said something in her interview that really, it hit home for me, and it hit home for a lot of people, where she said that society sees special needs. She says they've got it backwards. A lot of times society sees people with special needs as weak. She said they have it completely backwards. They are the strong ones. They've shown the ability to survive, the ability to take their disabilities and still make the most of it and go on and thrive the best they can. and we've got it backwards. They're the strong ones, and we should be able to learn from them. And, that really hit home. And it really, when you talk to a lot of people, you realize that they are the strong ones.
That's a really powerful message, and that is true in many ways if you think about it, because people with autism or ADD, ADHD, Fragile X syndrome, or something similar, or maybe a different disability, they have to deal with more hardships and obstacles than a neurotypical would. Like for me, for instance, I didn't learn, like I love comedy as a kid, but I couldn't really figure out how to tell good jokes until like college, when I actually started paying attention to like not only how the comedians were presenting their jokes, because it's not just about telling it, it's also about presenting it. And there's also paying attention to like current trends, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, stuff like that. I didn't learn about that stuff until college. And even then, I learned it from mistakes from other comedians. Thankfully, I didn't have to make them myself. And even something as simple as snapping a finger, I didn't learn that until high school, when someone actually like took the time to show me how like the fingers were placed and how to move it, that stuff. I was like, when I snapped it for the first time, I was like, whoa, that's how it works. But those are a couple minor examples. There are many other struggles that special needs individuals go through that a neurotypical does not. And those struggles can make an individual stronger if they like persevere and get through it. So that really is a pretty powerful message. Like, did that speech have like, what kind of impact did that speech have on you? Like, did it change the way you thought about some things, or did it empower something you thought about before?
I think it made me think a little bit deeper about how society sees special needs, and realizing that with all of the things that people have to deal with on a daily basis, that this is an opportunity where you say, look what this individual deals with, and all the strength that it takes for them to get through this day. And I think how she said that, it really rung true. And then, you look at a man that interns on my show, and he's in a wheelchair with cerebral palsy, and he's an intern for me. And the effort that it takes for him to actually get to the radio station to intern, where he has to get someone to drive him because he needs a special van. So he needs a support person to drive him to get it in. Then the idea that the wheelchair might not be working, or it needs a part, and everything he goes through just to actually get to the radio station. There was 3 weeks in a row where he couldn't get there because the wheelchair wasn't working, and they couldn't get the wheelchair in the van. But he was so determined to get to the radio station that it didn't matter how many weeks it took him, that he was eventually going to get there, and he did. And he's a big part of the show. And it was interesting because he's a big Yankee fan and I'm a big Met fan. So we go back and forth. So, and he knows everything there is to know about sports. But
those conversations are interesting.
Yes. And this was at the peak of the time where, you had to really be diligent about wearing your mask, and everybody and their brother was complaining about wearing their mask, and he hadn't been out of the house. So he got to the radio station and he had his Yankee mask on, and he starts doing his interview, and he looks at me and he just says on the radio, "I have been waiting days to be able to wear this mask," meaning he hasn't been able to get out of the house. And he just, as much as everyone was complaining about wearing it, he was thrilled. He finally got to put his mask on, because that meant he was leaving the house. So because he couldn't get out of the house because the wheelchair was broken and he couldn't get the part. And then we're in the height of the pandemic and everything was delayed he couldn't get the part delivered and they couldn't fix it. So it was a big to do. And for him to say, I've been waiting to put this mask on, meaning he's finally able to get out of the house. Just the struggles that this man went through and the perseverance that he showed, because he really wanted to be a part of this radio show and he wanted to share his story. And it's just absolutely amazing. And now he's actually back at college. He's at Rowan, which is where we're currently doing the radio show. He's at Rowan, and he's actually interning for the baseball team, which is just a really cool thing.
Nice. Yeah, the reason I was laughing earlier, because I was thinking back to like the Yankees and Mets thing. Like when Terzia says, I've been waiting a long time to wear this. I actually kind of misinterpreted it as a joke, like for the Yankees and Mets. So want to apologize about that. Sorry about that.
No,
so yeah, that's a very amazing story. Like going through all the struggles and having that determination to go out there and get what you want, regardless of like if you're delayed on something because of like missing parts, or like there's a technical problem with the equipment, or like maybe the service wasn't available at that time. But despite all of that, being able to work through all those problems and come to a solution, that's not always easy. And you're right, that is something that unfortunately society doesn't really, or at least in my opinion, doesn't really look at as much as like like what they deem as the flaws or the setbacks. Because from what I've learned, society has a list of norms and expectations, whether that's like broadcasted to the world or not. Like sometimes it's like unspoken rules, which can make it much harder for neurodiverse individuals, because like if it's not spoken, how are we supposed to know about it? So
and it's interesting because through this show, when a family comes on and they bring their child on, it's their chance to tell their story. And I've met so many families that have been on the show that have inspired me. And that's been really meaningful to me, because so many times they said this was a chance for us to tell our story. And it might have been their only chance to tell it on a platform where other people are listening. So just, it's very inspirational when you hear, families telling their stories like that.
Yeah, so I think that if society as a whole takes some time to look at the strengths of an individual rather than like the weaknesses or possible difficulties they may have to deal with, they can find that special needs individuals can offer a lot to the table. They just need like the opportunity, the guidance, just the tools they need to succeed in whatever it is they want to do. And unfortunately, the media hasn't exactly been too nice with that, unfortunately, because people are used to the movies like Rain Man, Forrest Gump, and TV series like The Good Doctor, where they're portrayed in this where the characters that are supposed to be autistic or something similar are portrayed in a way where everyone can figure out, oh, that person has a disability. But the problem with that is that it sets a bad image, a bad reflection of what that community is all about. We're not just like a stereotype. We're not just a whatever that person is acting on the screen. At the end of the day, we're people, regardless of whether or not we have a disability, whatever disability that may be, whatever the case may be. At the end of the day, we're still people. So I feel like if society remembers to look at special needs individuals as people, then they can start to see the strengths and attributes that they bring.
And I think that's an excellent point. And to expand, there's a man, Stephen Tingus, who's been on the show at least 2 times, and he has a disability, and he's an actor, and he's been working for years, I think since 1990, on getting authenticity in the actors that portray these roles. So in actually having the people, the actors playing the roles with the actual disability, and he's worked on the authenticity in acting and getting people to be able to act. He's worked on this project for years, for decades, and he's just amazing when you hear his stories.
Wow, that's actually pretty cool. Yeah, definitely authenticity is a crucial part in not just promoting the autistic community, but also like acting in general. Like the reason we get attached to certain characters in a movie or TV series is because of their authenticity. And because of that, we can relate to that person. And once we relate to that person, we start to become attached to that person. Or at least from my experience, anyway.
Now, yeah, we all have that character, whether it's in a book, whether it's in a TV show, a movie that you can relate to. And I get your point with that, and that if it's a character that has an actual is dealing with something similar that you're dealing with, then you can relate. I'm just a prime example, Julia from Sesame Street, where they brought in Sesame Street has done an amazing job bringing in characters that have various special needs or various hardships. And Julia was the first autistic character, and I remember when Julia came on Sesame Street, I saw a different type of reaction in my daughter where I could clearly see where she was relating to the character. And when she
Wow.
watches, she likes to watch now more on her iPad. She'll watch the episodes. And if there's one where Julia is on, she'll come grab me and she'll want me to watch the character.
Wow. That's pretty impressive to pull that off with a puppet. Yeah, so when Julia was introduced to Sesame Street, obviously there was a big impact on a positive impact, mind you, for like the Sesame Street audience and the autistic community, because this was the first character, or at least as far as I know, the first character in Sesame Street who was openly identified as autistic. So I think it's actually a brilliant way to kind of introduce autism as like in this puppet form of Julia. And some people might be confused as to like, wait a minute, Stephen, you talked about earlier seeing special needs people as people, and yet you think this puppet Julia did a good job? Well, here's the reason why I think that. See, as children, whether we're neurotypical or neurodiverse, certain how do I want to describe it? Tools or certain God, I'm trying to find the right words. I swear I don't struggle this much in my videos. Or using the right elements, that's it. By using the right elements like colorful and bright puppets, we tend to be drawn to them because they stick out to us. They don't look like the people we run into as we walk through the streets or city or anything like that. It's something that sticks out. It's eye-catching. It's appealing. And as children are drawn to that, we pay attention to what that puppet is doing and saying. So the idea of introducing this autistic character, Julia, in the form of a puppet, it was a really smart idea to educate people about autism, because what Sesame Street does with not just Julia, but like all of the puppets of Sesame Street, because I really love Sesame Street. I'm a little bit of a fan. What they do with the puppets is that they give each of them their own personality, and these personalities can easily be relatable to other people, like Grouch from the trash can, or Count Dracula. Why did I say Count Dracula? Oh God.
The Count, Count von Count.
Wait, what was it again?
The Count.
The Count. That's it. I'm sorry. It's been so long. Like Elmo, Cookie Monster, Big Bird, all of these characters, like they have their own personality, but those personalities can be similar to interacting with people. It's not so abstract. So when we see Julia portraying the character she is, I can understand that many people can relate to her because of not just the autism, but also the personality that goes along with her.
No, and I agree with you. And also that's how Sesame Street does that. They base the puppets, they're designed from people who are familiar with whatever the special needs is. So they do a lot of research. There's a lot of research that goes into it.
Yeah, that's definitely good that they do their due diligence and research, because that's a very crucial part of portraying special needs in the media, in terms of like, it's not just about saying, oh, this person has autism. You need to show that you understand what autism is and how to portray it in an appropriate manner.
Yeah, and I do think that Sesame Street through the years, regardless of what the situation was, has always done a terrific job with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what was I gonna think? Now, it's been a long time since I saw Sesame Street, and I don't know, a lot of things may have changed. But was there any other characters from Sesame Street that they tried to introduce that may have like a different kind of disability? Or
I think there's one coming now that might be in a wheelchair, and I think
okay,
different. I think in different areas they show different ones. I think there was one that was HIV positive. I think that was
oh,
yeah, and that was a great thing to show because it gave children an understanding. I don't know if it was shown here, but I think there was one version of Sesame Street where they did have an HIV positive character. They've showed, and they've dealt in different things when the hurricane destroyed people's properties. They showed they used it in the example with Big Bird's nest being destroyed. So they have gotten into some serious issues. Racism, they've done a great job with that, and they've changed with the times. I'm a fan.
yeah, it's really incredible that Sesame Street is able to do so much with something as simple as like a scenery and some children and some puppets. It's amazing what they can do, and more importantly, do it right. Because with some of the topics you mentioned, and with Julia in the picture, I feel like Sesame Street is one of those rare shows and series that can cover a topic, do it right, and make it so that both adults and children can understand. So, but I think we got a little sidetracked a little bit. Getting back to your radio show, what has been some of the biggest obstacles that you ever had to deal with?
Well, during the height of COVID, there was a lot of obstacles in getting the guests to do the show. It works best when we can be live in studio. That was definitely an obstacle. So trying to regather and redirect the show, that's been a big thing. And with the one station I was on, we had to getting our sponsors and the things of that nature to keep the show just keep the show going. But we've been able to keep it going. So there's always going to be some obstacles in everything, just keeping up the technology and the sponsors and the guests. There's always going to be the work that goes into it. And sometimes you struggle a little bit with that, but it balances out when you because I just have met so many people through this show and see, how much of an impact it's had on them to be able to share their stories, and having the opportunity to meet all these people and share resources. I realize that it has been a good thing, and it's been a way for me to contribute, to take my years in radio and combine it with having a child that needs various supports, and to be able to blend those two things together. It does give me a feeling that it's my way of contributing by taking the radio skills and putting this show together and having this platform.
Yeah, the pandemic has been probably one of the most challenging obstacles that all of us had to deal with in probably over 100 years, because whether we're neurodiverse or neurotypical, whether or not someone has a disability, all of us were impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic because all of us are social creatures by nature, whether we want to admit it or not, or whether we want to be like by ourselves or like maybe with a group of people. We all have that desire for socialization in some way, shape, or form. And with the COVID restrictions, like we had to stay at home, had to wear a face mask whenever we go out, that was very challenging. And a lot of people were not really happy about it because it felt like a lot of the things we take for granted, like being able to go out to a restaurant or being in a large group of people, or even something as simple as having large family get-togethers. We couldn't do that because of the pandemic. So
and
it was a very challenging moment, but it sounds like you were able to improvise, adapt, and still keep your radio show going.
the world has changed with it. And the reality is, Stephen, COVID's not over yet. The
Oh, no,
restrictions,
it's not.
the restrictions have been lifted, but there's still the anxiety over it. The virus didn't just walk out the back door and say, okay, the restrictions are gone. I'm out of here. People are still getting it. And so it is still, there's a degree of anxiety about it. It's not over yet. Now the restrictions have been lifted and we can go about our business, but we still have to use caution here. I mean, thankfully the children are able to go to school, the parents can go to work, and we're able to resume that type of thing. But there is still some anxieties, that go along with it because, it's not over yet.
Yeah, and actually that's a pretty significant part that was impacted, our school lives, because many of the friends I have met and still friends are and friends with now is because of school, because I went to this school environment and actually got to know the friends and hang out with them, not just like interacting on a computer screen. Like online meetings and online classes was a acceptable compromise given the circumstances, but it was not going to give you that level of socialization in comparison to actually being at the school itself. So that was definitely a big obstacle. And you're right.
It takes a toll on the children. It really does. It was necessary. I agreed with it. It was completely necessary because there was so much. I mean, there was no vaccine out yet.
Well, not only that, but like
there was so much we didn't know yet.
When the vaccines first came out, many people were concerned about whether or not it'd be safe for children. So there was also that issue too.
Right. And that's an excellent point. Yeah, that was a big issue. So there was a lot of things there. And now, thankfully they were able to go back with some restrictions, and now a good portion have been able to get vaccinated, and most of the staff has been able to get vaccinated. So we're in a better place now. And, there was back, 2 years ago, there was so much about the virus that we did not know about yet. And, we had to use this precaution, and thankfully
there were so many variables and like unknowns and theories and speculations.
Right. And thankfully we were able to get a good portion of the community vaccinated, and we're hopefully on a good path, but we all have to be careful. We all have to use precautions, finding that balance of how do you go back to quote unquote normal, but still you want to be mindful, because that whole, how we did things in the beginning might have been part of what got us in this mess in the first. So we kind of want to have that balance of, maybe in the winter, listen, there's 2 winters in a row I wore a mask. This is 2 winters in a row I didn't even get a cold. So maybe wearing a mask in the winter is not such a bad thing if I didn't even get a cold. So just things like that and adjustments that you want to make.
Yeah, and actually, me and Mom were talking about the aftermath of the pandemic, and what Mom and I agreed on was that we might not be able to go all the way back to normal per se, but more like there's going to be this new sense of normal. Like, thankfully, it looks like we're getting over the worst of it, but we still have to remember what we learned from that experience and apply that going forward. So there are going to be some things that are still going to be different, but hopefully with this new norm, we'll be better off for it in case we have to deal with hopefully we don't have to deal with it, but just in case we have to deal with a pandemic similar to this.
No, and I think that's a good point. I mean, we never thought we would have to deal with anything like this, but listen, the pandemic affected everyone in some way. But if you're dealing with a special need, you times that by 10, especially like I've heard stories, a lot of moms I'm friends with, maybe have children that are older and they're in the adult programs and they couldn't go to their program. And it was awful because they couldn't, it's not like the students, they're still able to have school online and see their teachers and see their friends. A lot of the adults, they're relying on their adult programs. That's where they went 5 days a week or whatever program they were in. And they couldn't do that. And it was just the hardship that caused on their families and on them, and the anxieties it caused. I mean, it affected everybody. When you hear these stories about how it affected the special needs community, it was truly heartbreaking to hear about. And when these parents share their stories, it kind of gives you that whole perspective of the pandemic.
Yeah, it definitely took a big toll on all of us. So we're actually getting close to the end of the podcast. Before we go, is there any message you want to give to anyone listening to this, whether they are special needs individuals or parents of special needs individuals or neurotypicals wanting to learn more about the special needs community? Is there any message you want to give to them?
Well, I can give you the information if they want to hear the radio show. It's, to me, it gives a lot of variety. Sometimes it's informative where you want to sit back and listen, because it might be, give you an example, a special need dentist talking about the things and the procedures they take to ease the stress of a family going, because you talk to families that have special needs, that's a toughie. Sometimes it's a little more lighthearted. At the end of the year, we do our end of year talent show where everybody comes and they sing and they play their instruments and we have a blast. Other times a parent might be talking about a heartbreaking story. I've had parents on that, have lost children. We get it from A to Z. And really for me, I've learned so much just from listening. The show started as, we're a resource. I'm going to have guests on. The audience is going to learn. I've met so many people who have taught me so much. I never envisioned the show in the direction that it took. It's something it's very meaningful for me. I've been fortunate enough to be in radio for a lot of years. I've been very lucky, worked with amazing people on, some cool stations. This show gives me meaning and purpose. There's so much meaning to the show, and it's really meaningful for me. The show, if you want to hear it, it's you can hear it a variety of ways. Rowan Radio, 89.7 WGLS FM, streamed anywhere, rowanradio.com. And then they're all podcasts. So if you don't hear it at 8:00 Saturday morning, you go to rowanradio.com, you can hear the podcast. That's Saturday mornings from 8 to 8:30. And again, you can go back to any show and hear the podcast. It's also on WNJHradio.com. That's strictly an internet radio station. That is Sunday morning, 8:00. So we have Saturday morning and Sunday morning at 8. You can hear again the podcasts. We also have our website, everythingspecialneeds.info. So the shows are all archived on there. And if you would like to contact me and you want to be a guest on the show, like us on Facebook and feel free to message me at Everything Special Needs Radio Show, or send me an email, everythingspecialneeds@yahoo.com. And I'd be happy to communicate with you. And if you're interested in being a guest or anything you want to throw a resource at me to put on the pages, I would be happy to do it. And people like you, Stephen, I met you through the show. And now we're able to collaborate, and I hope we can do a lot of fun stuff, a lot of cool stuff, and collaborate on the radio show and on your YouTube channel. But now we have a couple means where we can continue to communicate, which I think is a really good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll leave a link to those websites in the video description down below. So if anyone wants to check them out, just click on the video description and the link should be down there. Now you mentioned about talent shows. Are those available to see or listen to on the website as well?
The audio. So it's strictly
Okay.
on the radio. So there's no visual, but it's audio. And we do it December of every year. So we'll be having it. And we've had comedy people that do voices. You can do comedy. So if you want to, for anyone, you or anyone you don't want to participate, and it's open to everybody. So even if somebody doesn't have a special need, we try to bring everybody together. So I think it's a really cool thing. Sometimes their parents will come on, and we've had a mom and daughter do a duet with the girl. It's a cool story. The girl, she has Tourette's, and she has some pretty significant vocal stems. But when she sings and when she performs, she doesn't have any of them because she's so focused. And she's an amazing singer and an amazing guitar player. So she did a duet with her mom, which was really a cool thing.
Nice. Yeah, that's definitely interesting. I hope the audience checks it out. And I do agree with you on like a couple things in terms of, like, your message. One is like, there is so much that you can learn just by listening to different people about their experiences, their way of life, that kind of thing. So it's always interesting to hear so many other stories. And the other thing I've noticed with this YouTube channel myself is that it transforms in a way that I don't think any of us expect at first. Like, we may have this initial plan of like this project becoming very popular, or like it's reaching so many views and subscribers. But as we actually work on the project, we start to realize not just like the number counts, but also like the number of lives that our work has an impact on, like how the content I make and the radio shows you make, how they make a difference in people's lives. Because there was a fan that contacted me by email a while back, saying that she suspected that she had autism. So I actually took time to like talk to her about, I took time to reply to the email and basically mention like, okay, if you think you have autism, here are some things you can do. And then later on, I made a video about that topic in case other people had that question. And then, I kid you not, a while later, I got another email from that person, not only thanking me for like the answers I provided, but she also mentioned that she got the official diagnosis that she is autistic. So the idea that our work can affect people's lives, I think that's something that we can't really factor in, or we can't really take into account at first. Like, we usually see just the end results. We don't really see the journey that it takes to get there. I don't think it's really possible to really see what kind of journey your content creating career will take, because anything can happen. It could succeed, it could flop, it could be that nobody really takes away anything from it, or many people take away from it. It's impossible to know unless you take that journey. And many times with projects like these, the projects themselves, the ideas we envision, usually end up much bigger than we may initially think or take for granted. We just have to like keep trying, keep improving, keep listening, and keep moving forward. So,
absolutely. Stephen, thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad to have you on the show, or podcast. I mean, yeah, now I'm getting mixed up. Okay. So, but in any case, I do want to thank you for tuning into this podcast, and thank you, Mr. Sue. Okay. Miss Sue Shilling. Miss Sue Shilling. This is what happens when I don't get enough sleep. Sorry. Okay. So thank you, Miss Sue Shilling, for taking time to be on this podcast. And thank you, everyone in the audience, for taking time to watch or listen to this podcast. If you enjoy what you see and hear, consider subscribing to Tostemac to stay up to date in our latest videos. We cover different autism topics. We do podcasts of all kinds every Saturday. No, this month of April, it's every Saturday because it's Tostemac Podcast Month. But after April, it's going to be every other Saturday as part of the regular schedule. So be sure to tune in. We'll have all kinds of ideas and conversations ready. So thank you very much for watching. And until the next video, see you later.